We're back closely following updates on the 3 million Epstein Files documents released over the weekend. Our team at MS Now has counted at least 40 examples of missing redactions so far, revealing victims' names and, in some cases, faces and photos. Several survivors are speaking up about this latest drop, writing in a statement, quote, "This latest release of Jeffrey Epstein Files is being sold as transparency, but what it actually does is expose survivors. This is not over." And they say they look forward to hearing from Attorney General Pam Bondi. Let's bring in two of those survivors, Danielle Bensky and Liz Stein, who both signed on to the statement condemning what they call the DOJ's incomplete release of the files. Thank you so much both for being here. I'm sure it was a stressful and emotional weekend as all these files were released. Danielle, let me start with you because, again, you and I have had multiple conversations about, how important it was for survivors to be protected, but that the stories are out there and any people involved in any way in the abuse are exposed. And yet you have names of survivors, in some cases photos exposed. The DOJ had said that was one of the reasons it took so long to put these files out there was because of redactions. So what do you say to that?
I mean, the fact that only 300 million, right? We're talking about that we've only seen half of the documents.
3 million out of
3 million. There you go. Thank you.
Million.
Yeah, 3 million. But, we've only seen half. And they're saying that the reason that they didn't release the other half was to protect survivors. And yet I've found all of my identifying information out there. And I can't tell you how disheartening it is to look through a 302 and see all of your information. It's not just my name. It's like my birthday, my address at the time, and you move through it and then all of these Jane Does are being exposed. And so it's just incredibly disheartening that they really failed all of the survivors on this after so many months of saying we're being so meticulous about this and we care so deeply about this. So I think that's where the slap in the face really hurts.
So slap in the face, you say it felt like, what went through your mind as you see your own name?
Yeah. I mean, it's horrific. And you get that rush, right? That feeling that's like, that shame, tingles feeling of like, I feel like I want to throw up because it's just all out there for the world to see. It's your whole life that's just on display. And for me, I've been public, but for my survivor sisters who are not public and for those Jane Does, it's absolutely devastating and heartbreaking to see.
Liz, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says the DOJ has been rectifying every missed redaction that they've been alerted to. And he, in his initial press conference, said mistakes will be made. But again, this stuff's already out there, right? If they missed it and it's been released, it's hard to kind of put that genie back in the bottle. How are you feeling in this moment?
Thanks. This morning someone said to us, you can't put toothpaste back into a tube, right? And so now we're living with, what has been released. And I can't express enough how intentional it feels that all of this information is being released. And it feels kind of in a way like additional intimidation, which is something that I think we all felt during our association with Jeffrey Epstein. And so it is bringing up those feelings again, those feelings of fear, those feelings of exposure. And a lot of this information was given in the course of litigation where survivors did not expect for it to ever become public. The most intimate and private details of people's lives that they were telling to law enforcement officials to help support litigation, and to have that out there, to have that so blatantly broadcast to everyone is something that we just never expected. And Danny, when I saw how blatantly your information was unredacted, I mean, it feels really hurtful and really intentional.
Danielle, 3.5 million pages or documents were put out, but as you mentioned, 6 million total were collected, or maybe more than that, according to the Deputy Attorney General. Are you concerned about what's still missing, what's not been revealed?
Definitely something that I've been looking for. I was pretty scared in 2008 when I first was contacted by the FBI and I was subpoenaed, and I went and spoke to them, and there were some things that I just wanted to really clarify, and I did in 2018, just to really get the story a little bit more authentic. And I can't find the 2018 report, but I can find the 2008. And so it just feels a little bit deliberate, right? It feels a little bit like, why is this report the one with my name and so easily accessible, but I can't find the more honest statement coming from 2018. So I mean, it's not that it's not there. There's so many documents that we're combing through, and everything is really hard to find and really mislabeled. So I had found my name in a memo pad that was labeled Florida redacted, right? And I was not in Florida, and it was certainly not redacted. So we're just finding all of these.
So it's inaccurate as well.
Yeah, it's really tough to find. I felt like in the beginning we had talked about them giving us some sort of appendix or something where we could actually find the necessary information. We've been asking for our 302s for quite some time, just anything to sort of provide us a roadmap, and there's just been nothing like that. So it is disheartening, and we're just not sure what's there. Like, we haven't even found the other half of Maria Farmer's 1996 statement. So we're just trying to find it all at this point, but it shouldn't be this hard.
And you say we, because I know that this survivors group has come together, has provided support for one another. Liz, your statement that as a group you put out says you're looking forward to hearing from Pam Bondi when she testifies before the House Judiciary Committee expected next week. What questions do you want her to face?
We have so many questions. I think that some of the things that we want answers for is, why were the redactions handled in the way that they were handled? What was the process that they used? Who vetted these redactions? I think that we want to understand why they don't feel like there's any evidence here to bring charges against co-conspirators.
Joining me now is Lisa Phillips, an Epstein survivor. Thanks so much for coming on. Blanche said he wants to make victims whole, but then he also said he can't create evidence to do that. What's your response?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Chris. Well, Todd Blanche's most recent statement said any investigation into Trump or other men regarding the Epstein files is over. I would like to note how many times this has already been said by Pam Bondi. My response to his comment is like the age-old phrase, this isn't over until we say it's over, meaning the 1,200 survivors fight for our right to see all the files. And I speak out for only survivors. Well, I will also add on to what I said in September. We were there. We saw firsthand who was there, what was done, and Mr. Blanche and Miss Bondi were not there. Second, I'd like to comment on the filing a couple days ago by my fellow survivor sisters to demand the Epstein Files website come down until the survivors' names are deleted. This is a necessary move, hard stop. The law passed on the day of the November press conference. And that law said all documents were to be released by a certain date and no survivor names were to be disclosed. The DOJ has violated all three of those requirements. To this day, many documents still haven't been disclosed. Second, the date set for release has long passed. And third, the DOJ released the names of the survivors. This is not okay. They're not abiding by the law. And we're going to keep fighting, until we get all the files released.
Yeah, let me add a little bit to what you just said. Part of the reason we were told this review took so long is that DOJ said it was trying to protect survivors. The New York Times reports that the DOJ published dozens of unredacted nude images on its website showing young women or possibly teenagers whose photos were contained in the files related to Epstein. Additionally, the Wall Street Journal reports they did a review of 47 victims' full names. They found 40.
Let me say this right up front. What I'm about to explain is one of the most disturbing stories I've ever covered on this channel. And yes, I know I say that a lot, but this time I truly mean it, because when you put these two stories together, they paint a picture that is deeply alarming, not confusing, not complicated, alarming. And the fact that most people are going about their day like everything is normal is honestly hard to wrap your head around. Because this is not normal. None of this is fine. Here's what happened. A top secret Pentagon document was leaked. It's called the Overmatch Brief. It was created by the Office of Net Assessment, which is basically the Pentagon's long-term strategic brain. Their entire job is to figure out whether the United States can actually win a war before one ever starts. And what does this document say? It says clearly and directly that if the United States tried to stop China from taking Taiwan, we would most likely suffer a decisive defeat. Let that sink in. Not that it would be hard, not that it would be expensive, but that we would lose. Those are the exact words used. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth confirmed it publicly. He said that in war simulations against China, the United States loses every single time. Every time. Now hold that thought, because at the exact same moment this classified assessment is circulating in Washington, another bombshell comes out. Leaked audio, actual recordings of President Donald Trump at private fundraisers in 2024, speaking to wealthy donors. On tape, he bragged that he told Chinese President Xi Jinping, and these are his words, "If you go into Taiwan, I'm going to bomb the hell out of Beijing." He said it directly, on tape, to donors. Trump then told the room that Xi thought he was crazy and didn't fully believe him. But Trump said that was fine. He claimed he only needed Xi to believe him 10% for it to work. He even said 5% would have been enough. So let's be clear about what we're looking at. We have a sitting U.S. president on tape threatening to bomb the capital city of the most populated country on earth, a country that is also a nuclear-armed superpower. At the same time, that president's own Pentagon is privately admitting that if China actually called that bluff, the United States would lose badly. That is not a hypothetical problem. That is a real one. Now, some people will say, that's just Trump being Trump. He talks tough. That's his style. Okay, but here's the issue. Talking tough without the ability to back it up is not strength. It's not strategy. It's provocation. And according to the Pentagon's own classified analysis, we do not have the muscle to back this up right now. This is all happening in February 2026. China has just purged its top military commander, General Zhang Yuxia, the most senior uniformed officer in the Chinese military. He was effectively number 2 under Xi Jinping. He's gone, fired, under investigation, and he's not alone. Over the past 2 years, Xi has removed nearly 100 senior military officers. China's Central Military Commission, their version of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, has been almost completely wiped out. Only a couple of members remain. The entire leadership of China's military has been ripped out and replaced. No one knows what that means. It could mean China is preparing for war. It could mean internal collapse and paranoia. Either possibility is frightening. Meanwhile, the U.S. president is casually talking about bombing Beijing at fundraisers, while his own Defense Department is writing secret reports saying we'd be crushed in the very conflict he's threatening. This combination is extraordinarily dangerous. You have loud threats on one side, harsh reality on the other, and about 150 miles of ocean between China and Taiwan, where everything could spiral out of control. And here's what makes this even worse. There are members of Congress right now who have read the Overmatch Brief. They know exactly what it says, and they are saying nothing. No press conferences, no emergency hearings, no public warnings, nothing. Because nobody wants to be the one to say out loud that the emperor has no clothes. Nobody wants to admit that the checks being written with words may not be cashable by the military. At the same time, Xi Jinping is gutting his own military leadership and replacing experienced commanders with loyalists. And nobody, inside or outside China, knows what his actual plan is. Is he preparing for a fight, or weakening his own system through fear and control? Both scenarios are dangerous. Either way, this is the most serious military standoff since the Cold War, and we are flying blind. This may be the single most important national security story of Trump's entire second term, and it's barely being discussed. So let's slow down and break this apart, piece by piece. First, the Pentagon leak. The Overmatch Brief became public in December 2025 after being shared with select lawmakers. It's based on years of classified war games, intelligence models, and simulations focused on one question. What happens if China invades Taiwan and the U.S. tries to stop it? The conclusion is brutal. China has built its military specifically to defeat the United States in this exact scenario. They have layered missile systems, dense sensor networks, and massive stockpiles of precision weapons positioned right next to Taiwan. We, on the other hand, would have to move forces thousands of miles across the Pacific just to enter the fight. China is already there. We are not there. Distance, logistics, and time now favor Beijing. That's not commentary. That's the Pentagon's own assessment. It gets worse. The report says China could disable U.S. satellites, communications, navigation, missile warning systems, leaving American forces effectively blind for the first time since World War II. Even our most expensive assets wouldn't survive. The USS Gerald R. Ford, a $13 billion aircraft carrier, could be destroyed despite all its defenses. $13 billion gone. Now here's where politics enters the picture. When this information started leaking, you might expect hearings, debates, and public explanations. Instead, in January, the Trump administration released a new national defense strategy. It named China as the top threat, but also called for pulling forces back from Europe and focusing on homeland defense. Parts of that document were traced almost word for word to policy papers from the Heritage Foundation. That raised serious questions about who is actually shaping U.S. military strategy. Now back to the leaked audio. The recordings were made at private fundraisers in New York and Florida during the 2024 campaign. Journalists obtained them for a book titled 2024, released in July 2025. On the tape, Trump brags about threatening world leaders. He claims he told Vladimir Putin that if Russia invaded Ukraine, he'd bomb Moscow. Then he says he told Xi Jinping the same thing about Beijing if China moved on Taiwan. Trump describes Xi's reaction, "You're going to bomb Beijing?" And Trump replies, "I have no choice." He admits neither leader fully believed him, but says partial belief was enough. China's response is telling. State media allowed coverage of the Moscow threat, but completely censored the Beijing comments domestically. You don't censor something you think is a joke. Now let's talk about public opinion. Trump's approval rating is hovering around 42 to 43%, with disapproval in the mid-50s. That's a net negative of about 12 points. A CNN poll from January found that nearly 6 in 10 Americans say his first year back in office was a failure. Support among independents is down to around 29%. Among people under 35, only 3 in 10 approve. Republicans still support him strongly, but the country as a whole does not. And this China situation is not helping. Trump's brand is peace through strength. But the Overmatch Brief suggests that the strength part may not be real, at least not against China. And without real strength, peace is not guaranteed. You cannot bluff your way through a potential war with a country that has spent decades preparing specifically to beat you. Add in China's internal chaos, purged generals, no pushback, broken command structures, and you have the perfect setup for miscalculation. This is how unwanted wars start. Now let's address the madman theory. Supporters say Trump wants to appear unpredictable so enemies won't challenge him. Nixon used this approach. But here's the difference. Nixon had overwhelming military dominance. Trump has a Pentagon that says we'd lose the war he's threatening. That's not strategy. That's recklessness. Trump also threatened Moscow on the same tape. When asked about it, the Kremlin responded by saying they couldn't confirm whether it was real or fake. That's diplomatic language for, we don't know if this guy is serious. That is not effective deterrence. So what does this actually mean? First, Taiwan. Most advanced computer chips in the world come from Taiwan. Phones, cars, medical equipment, everything. If Taiwan falls, or even if war breaks out, the global economy collapses. Trillions in losses. Prices skyrocket. Xi has reportedly given the military a 2027 readiness deadline. That's next year. Second, the military reality. The Overmatch Brief calls for a complete overhaul of U.S. military strategy, less reliance on massive carriers, more focus on drones, cyber warfare, and dispersed forces. That takes years and massive spending. At the same time, the administration is pushing budget cuts. You can't rebuild the world's most powerful military cheaply while provoking the world's fastest growing one. Third, diplomacy. Military communication channels between the U.S. and China are barely functioning. After the purges, the commanders Americans knew are gone. No trust, no hotlines, no back channels. That's how accidents turn into catastrophes. Fourth, politics. Midterms are coming. Every House seat is up, along with key Senate races. If this escalates, even slightly, it could dominate the election. Gas prices, markets, global fear. The consequences would be massive. Fifth, Trump's next move. Does he double down? History suggests yes. And doubling down in this situation could be the most dangerous choice an American president has made in decades. Here's the part that should keep everyone up at night. A president threatening nuclear powers. A Pentagon saying we'd lose. China's military in turmoil. Communication channels failing. And the public largely unaware. The gap between what leaders say publicly and what the military knows privately has never been wider. And when that gap grows too large, countries stumble into wars they never intended and cannot win. That's where we are right now. 2 nuclear powers, 1 critical island, no clear leadership. This is the moment that matters. Stay informed, stay paying attention, because this story is not going away and it may define everything that comes next.